Figured I would do one of those videos that kind of catches everything up into one piece based on some questions that I've had, things along those lines. Recently, there has been, 4 or 5 questions across a couple different videos where folks have asked about this 214 that kind of just chills out that I never really say a lot about. This is a 1983 214. I got it in 2014 or 2015. It was free to me. And the reason I have it, it was purchased. Well, I'll give you the backstory on it. It was purchased new by the gentleman that gave it to me by his father in 1983. I don't have any documentation on it, but I saw the invoice and everything else. I originally came with a tiller, and they traded the tiller in later on a bagger, which it actually still has the bagger hookup. And if you look way up there at the top, the bagger's actually up there at the top. So I have the bagger and everything. And basically they actually spent a lot of money at Deere on it, so on and so forth. Just would not start. It would crank and crank and crank. Well, it was fuel pump and coils and a bunch of other things. So fast forward to the year I got it, and my life was pretty much a blur from about I'd say about 2012 until, really my life is still a blur, but from 2012 until 2014 to 15, it was a big blur. Lots of traveling that I did, things along those lines. But in one of those trips, I ended up with this 214 at a funeral. The funeral director was the one that gave it to me. He found out that I liked John Deere's. And he's like, hey, come over to my house and you can pick it up. I bought an X730. I don't need this anymore. And he's like, you like John Deere? And so I picked it up. And I've had it ever since. I have used it a couple times. I don't think I've done very many videos on it. But about a year after we moved into the current house to 2017, it got to the point where it wouldn't start anymore, and I believe it is just a fuel system problem. Either the tank is full of crap or something. I did replace the fuel pump, if you can see it in there. And this has basically been this way for well over a year now. And I just haven't come back to it. It actually runs really good when it runs. But I've got a 46-inch deck for it, and I don't need it. I don't have a use for it per se, but I don't want to get rid of it. So it just kind of hangs out here. It's got 2 flat tires. It is what it is. But that's the story on the 214. Also, in the last week, I've had the Power King out running around, really for the first time since last July. I took it out last July for a little bit. I think this summer I'm going to give it a little attention if I have some time. It's got a couple leaks in the back here, namely around that bull gear right there. So I think I'm going to give it a little attention this summer and see how it goes. I like kind of bush hogging with it, for lack of a better term. Deck's really nice to do that with because you can go really slow and you just mow it all down. The deck is old enough and crappy enough that it's okay to run over some rocks and stuff like that. I'm more or less interested in just knocking the stuff down than I am into getting a perfect cut. But that is the Power King. And then I got a couple other things that I want to go over in the front of the shop. Almost forgot. Last fall, I did all kinds of maintenance to this deck, greased everything. So this is the deck on the 1445, did everything that I needed to do, changed the gearbox, oil, whole 9 yards, all ready for the spring. I get it down in the spring and there's gear oil all in the pulley underneath the gearbox. So the seals have gone out in the gearbox. So I have ordered the seals, and there will be a replacement, or there will be a seal replacement video coming up in the next couple weeks as I have time to replace them. Right now it's just down to making sure oil stays in there, because I looked up the price of a brand new gearbox and it's almost $1,100 for a new front mount gearbox. Now they take a lot of abuse. I will fully agree with that. So probably not something necessarily that's going to be cheap regardless. If you compare that to an X Series gearbox, that is $378 right now. And naturally I have a lot of those gearboxes on hand, but I don't have any of the front mount gearboxes on hand. So I'll take that gearbox off here in the next couple weeks once I get the parts and have some time to do it, and we'll get those seals replaced. Deere actually does, unlike the X Series gearboxes, they sell all the components except for the input and output shaft and the gears. Everything else can be purchased through Deere, unlike the older gearboxes on the X Series and the 4-5 series, where you can't even order these plugs or anything like that. So I'll get all that's ordered. It should be here later this week, and next time I go to town, I will pick those up and we'll work on replacing everything. So we're going to look at Onan engines for a minute. I've had really weird things happen. In the last about week and a half, I've had 4 folks contact me. And if you're watching this video and you contacted me, thanks for sending me an email. I've had 4 folks ask me about the line coming off of the fuel pump. So there's a line from the crankcase to the fuel pump, which the fuel pump would normally mount right here. It's not on this engine. And the line is blowing off of the pulse pump, and then it's not getting fuel to the engine. My suggestion has been to check the breather, which in this particular case, this right here is the breather. It comes out of the top of the engine block on the C-Spec and later Onans. And I'll explain that here in just a second when I go to another engine where I'll show this a little bit better. Unfortunately, there are 2 different styles of these breathers, and your air cleaner will be different based on those styles, and it will also be a little bit different shaped. The other type of engine, the other type of breather, the A, B, and C, or A and B spec engines, had the breather in the cover of the engine, or in the valve cover of the engine. So it was right where my thumb is, or right where my finger is at right here. The breather came out of that valve cover and went up into the air cleaner. And the later engines, the breather was located in the top of the block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go see if I can find an engine that has the older style breather in it. So this is my 88 318 that I have the rebuilt Onan in. This is a P220 engine, so it's a 20 horsepower engine. If you want to go back and look at some of those rebuild videos, I think I put a couple of the rebuild videos of this one up, but it's mostly that B43 engine. That was way back in 2014, I believe. But at the end of my flashlight, or the beam of my flashlight, you see that metal, or that rubber housing right there that it's kind of going up and down right behind the exhaust shroud. That is the rubber breather that comes out of the valve cover on this engine as compared to coming out of the engine block itself. That means this engine is an older style engine. If I recall, this is an engine from 1987. I'll have to look on the tag. The tag is dirty and underneath the air cleaner. But I will show you another tag on another engine that decodes the spec and everything in the next part of the video. So this is the Onan serial tag. This is for a P218 engine. So the serial number E90, that is the month and year that the engine was built. So this was built in 1990. Then you have the model and specification number up top, the P218G. And that last letter right there, it says 1046, yeah, 10462C. C is the spec on the engine itself. So C specs and later are the ones that are going to have this breather in the top of the block, not on the engine. So I'm going to go show you a different spec on another engine. So here's another Onan. This is also a P218G. And if you look, this one is a 97 engine. So this is one of the last Onans before it became Linemar. And it's a 10608G. So it is a G-spec engine. So once again, it has the breather in the top of the engine block itself. I don't, aside from that one A or B series engine that I have in the back there, on my 88 318, I don't have a good example of an early spec engine, but that is how you tell where the breather's at. The air cleaner covers are different between the two, so just if you're buying air cleaner covers and stuff like that, it's something to be mindful of. So I think that's it for this video. If you have questions, comments, leave them below, and thanks for watching.